The certainty that a major winter storm will impact the Midwest and Northeast at this point is very high. Taking a look at the latest depiction of the European model, we do see that there's a small jet stream dip that's taking hold of the northern Midwest at this time. That's bringing temperatures below average, and this jet stream dip is going to steer this low pressure system further southward to, of course, create an unstable environment, because behind this low pressure system there's going to be plenty of cold air. First, we're going to see a Clipper system move through by the early Monday to late Monday time frame, where we do see that you could maybe experience maybe around an inch of snow in northern Minnesota and Wisconsin. But moving forward beyond that point, we see, of course, this major low pressure system eventually come from the Pacific Northwest, and like I said, there's going to be plenty of cold air behind it, a lot more than what you'd typically expect from a low pressure system coming off the Pacific Northwest coast. So that definitely raises the certainty that this storm could be potentially extreme, where many areas of the northern Midwest will likely experience over a foot of snow and potentially up to 2 feet of snow. Continuing to move forward, we do see that since the jet stream dip is so significant with this storm system, the area of snow is very elongated, where we see the snow extend as far east as Michigan and as far west as California and Oregon. So that's almost a 2,000-mile radius when it comes, or diameter when it comes to the exact length of this storm. So the area of snow is going to be very elongated, and we do see that the pressure will drop down to 978 millibars. There's going to be plenty of warm air just ahead of it to create a highly unstable environment, and by the late Wednesday time frame, that's when the snow should move into much of the northern Midwest, which includes the northern portions of Nebraska, South Dakota, Minnesota, and even as far east as Michigan. Like I said, could get involved with snowfall as early as Wednesday, thanks to how elongated this storm is. However, the heaviest snow won't approach the northern Midwest until the later time on Thursday, where we do see that the snow really becomes heavy at times just south of Minneapolis, and this extends to Milwaukee as well, and Detroit could get involved with some freezing rain and a wintry mix out of this. So, and you're going to be relatively close to rain snow line, so there is that possibility you might experience some snowfall, especially in the areas just north of Detroit. However, the certainty is very high. We've been seeing very general consensus between the computer models that this is the general trajectory we're going to see this storm take, and the area of precipitation that that this storm is going to develop as this approaches, as this moves in further and further eastward. So we do see that the snow is very heavy. This extends to South Dakota as well, and we even see some snow move into upstate New York, and we do see a little bit of mixing going on in northern Pennsylvania. But most of the heavy snow for the Northeast, at least, will be relegated to New England, as I'll say anywhere that's just south of the Interstate 95 corridor, the Interstate 84 corridor, which extends from Scranton, Pennsylvania, as far east as Boston. That's where you should expect the heaviest snowfall. If you're anywhere just south of the Interstate 84 corridor, then you shouldn't expect much snowfall, if any snowfall at all, as much of the snow should be relegated just north of the Interstate 84 corridor, as it seems like the cold air will be relegated further northward, but it won't be so far northward to the point where it's going to miss out on the entirety of, let's say, the Interstate 95 corridor cities, because Hartford, Providence, Boston get involved with snowfall in this scenario. And while there's still days to iron out the forecast, we're now approaching the 4 to 3 day mark with this storm system. So there isn't a lot of time for major variations with the forecast to occur. Of course, there still could be variations between now and 3 days. I wouldn't say it's really until 1 to 2 days out we get a very high certainty with the forecast, but I'll say the certainty that New England will experience major snow out, this is very high, and this will impact some of the bigger populations in the Northeast, such as Boston, Providence, Hartford, Albany could get involved, and even Buffalo could get involved with some snowfall as well. And you're probably wondering, how about for New York City? Well, I'll say that for this storm system, it's highly likely this will entirely be a rain event for New York City and of course cities further southward, as again this ridge will just be very strong, and the southerly winds will be a little bit too strong to bring those temperatures down to support for precipitation in the form of snowfall. So that's something to keep in mind, that New England, you need to be aware of the possibility of a very major snowstorm impacting you guys. And now you're probably wondering, how about the storm system that was expected to bring snow to the areas further southward in the Northeast? Well, based on the latest depictions of the two computer models, now they're less lenient on bringing snowfall in the areas further southward, which of course has been a very common trend we've been seeing all winter long. We typically see forecasts run very early on, bring snow to much of the coastal Northeast before it eventually shifts its forecast and brings snow only to the interior portions of the Northeast. And this could be another one of those scenarios. Well, not exactly the same scenario, because the reason why the European model doesn't want to bring snow to the areas further southward in the Northeast doesn't really have to do with temperature. It mainly has to do with the lack of instability, because we do see that compared to yesterday's run, the jet stream is a lot more straightened out associated with this low pressure system just behind it. So we aren't seeing that cold air move further southward to create enough convection for a large area of snow to develop. Now, there's still days to go to iron out the forecast, but now the European model is definitely less confident that there's going to be any sort of major snowstorm impact the areas further southward in the Northeast. We do see some snow in Virginia, but this is little to no snowfall at all, and this could easily change within the next couple of days. And then moving forward, we do see that this storm could maybe develop a little bit later than anticipated, where the European model expects the instability to build a little bit later during the run, and at that point it'll be far to the east of New York City. So this would impact more of New England, at least southern New England, where Connecticut, Massachusetts, Long Island will get involved with snowfall in this scenario. But the areas that were initially expected to receive snowfall from this storm system in the prior runs, such as New York City and Philadelphia, aren't receiving much of any snowfall from this storm system, as the European model expects the instability to build a little bit later, which is very interesting. So what really will determine who will get the snowfall is, of course, how much instability there will be as this approaches the Midwest. The European model is now leaning towards less instability to exist just behind this trough, as it expects the trough to be a little bit weaker than anticipated. So we won't see this storm develop an enhanced area of convection for a large area of snow to develop outside of maybe southern New England. So we're going to monitor this over the next several days, depending on how much instability there will be behind this low pressure system. But just be aware of this throughout New England, because this could be your second round of snow if this storm system were to encounter just enough instability, where the European model still is confident, but it's been trending towards less snow in the Northeast. So we need to see if that trend continues, or we're going to see even more snowfall in the next several runs. I'll keep you guys updated on that. But for this first storm system, like I said, the certainty is high. Many of the big cities such as Minneapolis, Green Bay, and large portions of South Dakota are expected to experience over a foot of snow, and this includes northern Michigan as well, and portions of the interior Northeast such as the Adirondacks, Vermont, and New Hampshire are expected to receive over a foot of snow from this scenario. Now let's take a look at the GFS model. The GFS model is also forecasting a very similar scenario. We see a powerful low pressure system move down the California coast, a very elongated area of snow, and we see that the area of snow in the exact same time period is nearly completely identical. So that definitely raises the certainty that this storm will form in a very similar fashion to what both of the computer models are saying, and the heaviest snowfall will be in a lot of the similar areas that both of the computer models are forecasting as well. And we're seeing a freezing rain threat in Detroit, Milwaukee, and the extreme northern portions of Illinois. So you need to be aware of that possibility possibility of freezing rain, and GFS model, interestingly enough, wants to bring the freezing rain as far east as New Jersey. So New Jersey, you might get maybe a little bit of wintry precipitation, but I don't expect it to be much at this point, as it doesn't seem like the cold air will move far south enough, and we're going to see just enough ridging to prevent this low pressure system to move far south enough to allow that cold air to build in, and we're going to see just enough ridging to force the southerly winds to be a little bit stronger, to force a warmer Gulf of Mexico air mass to move towards the northeast. So the snow will mainly be relegated to New England and the interior northeast, where in this scenario the GFS model wants to bring quite a bit of snowfall to much of New England. Pretty much the entirety of New England experiences accumulating snowfall in the GFS's model scenario, and it isn't just snowfall, it's very heavy snowfall at times. In Hartford, Providence, Boston, we do see the darker shades of blue, which represents very heavy snowfall. Really, it's all going to depend on the position of this ridge, how strong southerly winds will be, to determine the temperature as we approach the Thursday time frame, where the temperature will play a big role in terms of who experiences a heavy snowfall. However, what's interesting also is that the GFS model expects the snow to transition into a freezing rain threat, and that could definitely be concerning if this freezing rain threat is as significant as the GFS model expects, as that would definitely cause a ton of impacts that you definitely need to be concerned about in some areas associated with this storm system. And we do see still very heavy snowfall throughout Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan. The certainty is very high. And as for the second snowstorm, we do see the GFS model does develop a storm system as we approach the Sunday time frame during the weekend, but we see that the snow is a lot further northward in this scenario, as the GFS model expects a little bit of a warm air intrusion to move further northward, but we still see a significant snowstorm for New England. So that's only something to be aware about for New England, that you could be in for 2 rounds of snow over the next week. So this is what the European model is forecasting when it comes to snowfall over the next several days. We do see that a large area of the northern Midwest would experience over a foot of snow. This includes Wisconsin and Minneapolis, where you could experience well over a foot of snow. So this will be one of the more major snowstorms for you guys. In fact, probably the most significant snowstorm you experience this winter. And this includes the interior northeast as well, where we do see a large area of 12 to 18 inches of snow throughout the northern portions of the northeast. And we do see that Boston gets involved with 6 to 12 inches of snow. So this could be one of the bigger snowstorms for Boston. Hartford is right on the border between 3 to 6 to 6 to 12 inches. And Albany, you could experience up to 6 inches of snow. And in the European model scenario, it does want to bring some snow to northern New Jersey, but I wouldn't necessarily hold my breath on that, considering the trend we've been seeing this winter. But there is that possibility of wintry precipitation in northern New Jersey, and we do see that this snow extends as far west as South Dakota as well. And the GFS model is showing a very similar forecast when it comes to snowfall accumulation. The GFS model is pretty much almost completely identical when it comes to the snowfall accumulation forecast. Wants to bring the heaviest snowfall to a lot of the same areas, as we see that there aren't any major differences with the forecast, which is why I say the forecast certainty is very high. So in a lot of these areas where you're in the pink, you should prepare for 6 to 12 inches of snow. And if you're, of course, in the purples, that's where you should expect over a foot of snow from this snowstorm. And if we were to move towards southern New England, we do see there's a large area of 3-6 inches of snow extending to Hartford and even as far east as Boston, where you're experiencing 6 to 12 inches of snow in this scenario as well. So this is my current forecast when it comes to snowfall accumulation from the next 2 snowstorms. We do see that I'm expecting 12 to 24 inches throughout northern Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota. So make sure you guys take the right precautions. And it's pretty much mimicking what both of the computer models are saying. Like I've been saying, the certainty is very high. So make sure to take the right precautions as we approach the midweek. But thank you guys for watching.